How we did part of it is we actually talked about over the horizon. What we did is anybody who did not have a contributing job to the fight, we basically moved over the horizon back to Qatar, to Al Dhafra. We were moving special forces that had the admin work. We moved multiple areas. We moved the 455th, the 438th, 738th, 455th, and the 955th. We moved multiple people trying to get down there, and we still couldn't get down there. And they're still not down there now. The other part I found out is, remember I had 39 coalition partners. What I found out is my manning dock is not a US manning dock, it's a NATO manning dock. And we called them CE billets, which is crisis elements. And what we did is we found out is you couldn't do anything without Mother May I back to Brunson. So what it is, it took an immense amount of time from a senior leader to actually rebuild manning docks. Everybody was on the pins and needles during the State of the Union. We didn't know it was coming. And really what came out of the State of the Union was nothing. We prepared a lot for it, but no drawdown from Afghanistan. I'll talk about JET-IA program. This is one of my proud moments is JET-IA is Jet Expeditionary Tasking Individual Augmentee. What we do is we actually, the Air Force years ago came up with this program to help the Army out. We took very, very skilled jobs and we actually loaned them to the Army. It was developed about 15 years ago. And basically what it is even though after 15 years you think somebody was looked at it and said, hey, is it still ready? Is it still a good program? Nobody looked at it. What we found out is we were taking intel analysts and putting them in Afghanistan, and the Army was actually having driving trucks and Humvees. So what we did is we actually killed that program. So we're giving 2,000 airmen back, and we're going to restore readiness. And what we did is we didn't send them home. We did it through attrition. So that when they were going to backfill, the Army had to look at it. If it's critical, then they were going to fill it. If it's not critical, we didn't need that person. We're going to restore readiness. Air quality. Who knows air quality in Afghanistan? How bad is it, ma'am?
Can't see a thing.
It is the worst air quality in the world. If you've seen the burn pits, so if you were standing outside right now, you wouldn't be able to see the bar. It is the worst. The city grew from 100,000 people. The city grew from 100,000 people probably 10 years ago. It's over 500,000 people now, and they burn garbage to heat their homes. You can't blame them. It is really, really bad. They did a POEMS. They have people who have machines now to test the air. It's actually on the burn pit registry. If you know anybody, make sure you tell them to sign up. Okay, I gotta close this up. I'm going too long. Last story I'll tell you is what we tried to fix was airmen coming into theater and airmen going home for theater. It is actually it's a nightmare. To get into theater, it takes you up to at least 2 weeks to get into Afghanistan from stateside. It takes you 2 weeks to get home, and it gets actually worse. What we tried to do, all the coalition partners were flying from Germany, flying right into HKIA, which is the international airport in Afghanistan. We're not. So we actually took that all the way up to Transcom. We lost that battle, so we're still fighting. They're still fighting that on their end. But I will tell you now, what we're trying to do is trying to give time back to airmen and soldiers. So let me give you a number. 300,000 hours per year lost the way we're doing business. And we're trying to fix it. Folks, I would like to open up for questions. I don't know if I have time, Tom. No?
We have questions afterwards.
Okay, questions afterwards. I'm going to close, folks. I am really, really proud to be here tonight. I tell you, America needs to be ready. They need to be ready to raise their right hand, kind of like what Shane's doing back there. And I will tell you, what gets me passionate is when I hear those words, I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Folks, when I sit in this room tonight, that just reassures me. America's okay. Thank you for letting me talk tonight.
On 9/11, Americans awoke to a new reality. Terrorism and all its evil had reached our shores. and we were no longer immune to this destructive force. On 9/12, the country began its response with grim determination. Since the beginning of the War on Terror in 1990 with Operation Desert Shield, soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guardmen have operated in harm's way to defend our freedom. I am proud to have the privilege to have leading them in battle. Admiral Costello. Thank you very much for coming. I have a copy of the Admiral's book for you with great gratitude. Thank you. Chief Command Master Chief will be here afterwards to answer all questions and to discuss these matters further. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blew between the crosses row on row. They mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Spencer Lawrence, would you join me, please?
On Memorial Day 2006, President George W. Bush quoted Lieutenant Mark Dooley in a speech at Arlington. Remember that my leaving was in the service of something that we loved, and be proud. The best way to pay respect is to value why a sacrifice was made. Good evening. My name is Spencer Lawrence, and I am a junior at BUHS. Tonight, I have the honor of remembering Lieutenant Mark Dooley. He was born in Oklahoma on July 15, 1978. He and his family then moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. After 5 years in Florida, the family permanently relocated to Wallkill, New York. These moves were a result of Mark's father being in the Air Force. This caused both of the sons to grow up with respect and understanding of the military. As a child, Mark liked to dress well, or in G.I. Joe type clothing. He enjoyed watching Steven Seagal type movies and also enjoyed being outside and spending time with family. He was a part of the local Cub Scout troop and went to church with his family every Sunday. Mark was known as someone who was kind, thoughtful, and who loved animals. He believed that if you do something for one person, you should do it for everyone. Mark had a strong sense of right and wrong. When Mark was 10 years old, he aspired to become a police officer. In school, he wrote a report on how to train a dog and how he wanted a German Shepherd. While creating this report, he taught his family's dog to do certain tasks, such as opening a drawer to get a treat and finding items in the backyard. Knowing that Mark really wanted a German Shepherd, his grandfather got him one for his 11th birthday. He named her Chase. In elementary school, his favorite subject was U.S. history, and he played on the soccer team. But when he was in high school, he ran track and cross country. As a senior, he was the track captain, but his favorite sport was cross country. Several years after Mark got his dog, he found an owl in the woods. The owl had injured its claw and couldn't walk. Mark took it in and cared for it for a few days, and then brought it to someone the family knew who helped wildlife. Sadly, the bird was never able to return to the wild, but it was brought to a bird sanctuary where it lived happily. Family was very important to Mark. When his father was away, he would drive 3 hours just to plow his parents' driveway and immediately drive back to go to work. After he graduated from high school, Mark attended Norwich University in Vermont. At Norwich, he majored in peace, war, and diplomacy. During his college years, Mark made friends that he would later consider almost family. In his senior year of college, Mark joined the Vermont National Guard. He graduated from Norwich University in the Vermont Police Academy. As a part of the Vermont Army National Guard, he was first lieutenant of the 3rd Battalion, 172nd Mountain Infantry Regiment, 42nd Infantry Division of Jericho. Mark would later join the Windham County Sheriff's Department, and then, fulfilling his childhood dream, became a police officer. Ultimately, he would call Wilmington home. As a part of the National Guard, Mark attended Ranger School. The night before he graduated from Ranger School, Mark and his peers were building a fire. As he was chopping wood, part of a piece broke off and got embedded in his forehead. Mark tried to pull out most of the splinters, but failed to get them all. When he got home, he still had wood in his head and asked his mom to try to remove the rest. Periodically, he would have his mother reopen his wound and remove more splinters. Upon completion of Ranger School, Mark returned to the Wilmington Police Department. Mark felt a sense of duty to serve his country. When he left the police department, he put 2 pictures on his desk, one with him in police uniform and the other in military uniform. He also left a note that simply said, "This is the desk of Patrolman Mark H. Dooley. All people deserve freedom." He was deployed to Iraq and helped fight the War on Terror. And then, on September 19, 2005, Mark Dooley and 2 fellow servicemen were killed by an IED. After his death, he was awarded the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, the Army Achievement Medal, the Iraqi Campaign Medal, 2 U.S. Meritorious Service Medals, the Vermont Patriot Medal, and the Medal of St. Maurice. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. He is survived by his parents, Peter and Marianne, and his brother, Charlie. He is remembered at his high school by a corner post that the track team uses to measure their runs, and 2 5Ks that raise money for scholarships in Mark's name for students aspiring to go into the military. While Mark was in the National Guard in the Wilmington Police Department, he trained at the Ethan Allen shooting range with a few friends. Before long, he realized there was nowhere to train for entering a building with armed occupants. With his friends' help, they constructed a roughly built shoot house for everyone to use. After his death, the National Guard honored him by rebuilding the shoot house exactly the way Mark had. There is a granite marker inscribed with the words from Mark's last letter home. "Time will ease pain, and the best way to pay respect is to value why a sacrifice was made." Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Dooley, we hope that this flag that we're going to give you, which was flown over Afghanistan in honor of your son, will in some way demonstrate to us our extreme pride of being with your son and our gratitude for all he did. Thank you very much.
My name is Sam Kuzinin. I am a junior from the Brattleboro Union High School, and the veteran I have the honor of telling you the story of is Sergeant Charlotte Marcy. I had the absolute pleasure of working with Charlotte's mother, Teresa Marcy, who was wonderful and has helped me to accurately bring the life of Charlotte to all of you. Charlotte was born in Brattleboro, Vermont on July 19th in 1984. She grew up in Guilford with her mother, Teresa, her father, Michael, and her brother, Paul, who was 2 years older than her. The Marcys were an athletic family, and Charlotte was no exception, climbing mountains at the age of 2. Of course, having a brother provided great competition. Everything the two of them did was, anything you can do, I can do better. The schools she attended were St. Michael's School, the Grammar School in Putney, and the Guilford Elementary School, which at the time one could go up through middle school, and the Brattleboro Union High School. Charlotte was an animal lover to the core. She loved animals of all shapes and sizes, but horses she had a special connection with. Her family lived across from a horse stables, and not being able to afford riding lessons, let alone a horse, she worked at the stables in exchange for being taught to ride. She bought her first horse when she was 15, who she named Jupiter. She owned 3 horses total in her lifetime. Charlotte was an absolute force of nature. It was her way or the highway, and she let no one push her around. She was always full of spunk and adventure. One time when she was 16, she rode her horse to school and went through the Burger King drive-thru on her horse. Imagine getting that call from the police. Originally, Charlotte wished to go into law enforcement, and so was taking a course at the Career Center. She strived for fairness and wanted to be able to make things as fair as she could and to serve her community. Charlotte's brother Paul was in the Navy as a pilot, and she originally had no intentions of joining the military. However, one day she had worn her brother's Navy shirt, and the National Guard recruiters at the high school roped her in. Before she went to basic training, she had to sell her horse Jupiter. She flew through basic and advanced training with flying colors. She was the best in her class and beat out all of the males in physical fitness. Truly a force to be reckoned with. On Charlotte's first tour of Iraq, she was part of the military police. She was supposed to tour with the Vermont Army National Guard, but she was 3 pounds under the minimum weight and had to wait a year before being deployed as a replacement soldier with Arizona's National 860th Military Police Company in 2005. She was in Iraq for barely a week before just missing a roadside bomb. Charlotte sustained a traumatic brain injury but remained in Iraq until the end of her deployment and was back in action after recovering just a week. Definitely not enough time to fully heal. After coming home at the end of her first deployment, there was evidence of PTSD, and her parents did not want her to tour a second time, for her physical injury was still causing some trouble as well. During her second tour, she was deployed in a regular Army unit. She worked really hard, and within 2 years, she went from a private to specialist to corporal to sergeant. This is really impressive, especially for a female in the military, where you have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. During Charlotte's tours, she always wrote a response to every letter she received, handwriting each one to family, friends, and anyone else who wrote to her. In her service, she won a total of 6 awards: the Combat Action Award, the Army Commendation Medal, the Iraqi Campaign Medal, the Armed Forces Reserve Achievement Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, and the National Defense Medal. Charlotte came home from her second tour in 2009. With all her money saved up, she bought land in Guilford and, with the help of her friends and family, built a house. Charlotte was also on the lookout for a service dog. Her boyfriend at the time was really keen on getting a Weimaraner, which as a breed generally don't make good service animals. However, she was determined as ever, and when she found a Weimaraner puppy in Missouri, she drove 24 hours straight to pick up the puppy. The puppy was named Hooligan and was trained by Charlotte herself. Hooligan was more of an emotional support animal rather than providing services such as opening doors. Charlotte didn't come home from Iraq unscathed. She suffered from PTSD and a brain injury that never really hurt from the first tour. She got into a car accident where her car flipped over. She saw the sunlight through the trees as it set, and to her it looked like gunfire, which caused the accident. Incredibly lucky, she was mostly unharmed. Charlotte tried to pursue a career in law enforcement again and got a degree from the CCV. She attempted education at Keene State but struggled immensely before dropping out. And so Charlotte spent a lot of her time volunteering. She wanted to be able to help people in need. She didn't need to be paid. She spent a lot of time tending to the garden at the World War I Memorial Park in Brattleboro, making sure the veterans that fell before her still had a nice place to rest. She also spent a lot of time at the drop-in center working for the overflow shelter. She never really slept, so she took the 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. shift, making sure people had tents and blankets to get through the night. Charlotte also continued to spend a lot of her time with horses. She owned 2 horses of her own and also partook in therapeutic riding. During therapeutic riding, she spent 2 to 3 hours each day, twice a week, grooming her horse and riding. In 2014, at a horse riding show at the Guilford Fair, Charlotte suffered from heat stroke. She was airlifted to Dartmouth Hospital with a temperature of 109 degrees. It was a miracle she survived it all. Stroke worsened her previous injury and additionally damaged her shoulders, neck, brain, which compromised her speech and mobility. In the end, she was essentially confined to a wheelchair. Charlotte committed suicide on September 30th, 2016 at the age of 32. It was a combination of PTSD and the loss of her ability to be active and relieve stress through the activity that brought her to this point. She fought 2 years against the struggles of her physical limitations, and the only thing that kept her alive for as long as she was were her horses and being able to work with horses. She struggled with her will to live for a long time, and in the end found no joy in the life she was living with nothing to fix it. It was no one's fault. Charlotte's Arizona unit from her first tour by RAC had more suicides than any other unit in the Guard. Charlotte's death was the 9th one, and they've had 13 in all. Veterans commit 22 of the 129 average suicides daily. Mental health and suicide are topics that the world tiptoes around, holding their breath despite its immense importance. Over time, the stigma has been started to lift, and it will continue to lift, and perhaps we'll be able to save some lives.
Teresa and Michael, we present this flag to you to recognize this extraordinary American hero. And we hope that you will treasure it and recall how much we love and honor Charlotte.